My name is Alana Mitchell, I'm 28, and I never thought my own sister would betray me like this. I've always been the responsible one, carefully saving money while my younger sister Brooke lived for the moment. When I got that promotion at work, I finally felt financially secure. Then came that fateful night I accidentally left my credit card on the kitchen table after ordering groceries online. I had no idea that small mistake would lead to financial disaster and force me to question everything I thought I knew about family. Before I tell you how my sister destroyed my credit score, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama stories that might just save you from making the same mistakes I did. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, our family life seemed normal on the surface. My parents both worked hard, dad as an accountant and mom as a high school teacher. We weren't wealthy, but we never lacked necessities. From an early age, I displayed a responsible nature that contrasted sharply with my sister Brooke's carefree attitude. For years younger than me, Brooke was the baby of the family, the one who could charm her way out of trouble with a smile. Everything changed when I was 16 and Brooke was 12. After months of increasing tension and arguments behind closed doors, our parents sat us down one evening in the living room. Dad had accepted a job in California, but Mom wouldn't be joining him. They were getting divorced. The carefully constructed stability of our childhood shattered overnight. Mom suddenly became the sole provider for two growing girls. She took on a second job waiting tables on weekends to make ends meet. I watched her exhaustion grow with each passing month, and something inside me changed. I became determined to never be a burden to her. While I took on more household responsibilities and started babysitting neighborhood kids for extra money, Brooke took a different path. The divorce hit her hard during those formative middle school years. She became rebellious, staying out past curfew and hanging out with kids Mom didn't approve of. By high school, Brooke had developed a pattern of concerning behavior, skipping classes, borrowing money from Mom's purse without asking, and once even taking a pair of expensive sunglasses from a department store. "She's just acting out because of the divorce," Mom would say, making excuses for Brooke's behavior while expecting perfection from me. "She'll grow out of it." But Brooke didn't grow out of it. While I worked part-time throughout college to minimize student loans, Brooke dropped out after one semester, claiming college wasn't her thing. She cycled through retail jobs, waitressing positions, and administrative roles, never staying anywhere longer than a few months. There was always a dramatic reason for leaving: a mean boss, toxic coworkers, or just being bored. Meanwhile, I had focused on building a career. After graduating with a marketing degree, I landed an entry-level position at TechVision, a growing software company. I worked long hours, volunteered for extra projects, and slowly climbed the corporate ladder. By 28, I had been promoted to marketing manager, complete with a significant salary increase and better benefits. When Brooke lost her apartment after failing to pay rent for 3 months, I reluctantly offered to let her stay with me. It was supposed to be temporary, just until she got back on her feet. That was 11 months ago. While I paid the rent, utilities, and groceries, Brooke contributed occasionally when pressed, always with sighs and comments about how lucky I was to have a good job. Despite our differences, we generally got along. We'd watch movies together on weekends, and sometimes Brooke would cook dinner when I worked late. She made me laugh with her spontaneous nature and outgoing personality, qualities I sometimes wished I possessed more of. I told myself that by helping her, I was being a good sister. That eventually, she would find her path and become more responsible. What I didn't realize was that beneath our seemingly functional relationship, resentment was brewing, both hers toward my financial stability and mine toward her lack of contribution. This unspoken tension created the perfect storm for what happened next. I also didn't recognize the pattern that had been established in our family. Brooke takes, I give, Mom enables. It was a dynamic so familiar that I couldn't see it clearly until it was too late. My sister wasn't just irresponsible, she felt entitled to whatever I had. And I, conditioned by years of being the responsible one, felt obligated to provide it. The week before the incident, I had received my promotion. The salary bump would finally allow me to start looking for a condo to buy instead of continuing to rent. I mentioned this to Brooke over dinner, expecting her to be happy for me. Instead, she gave a tight smile and changed the subject. Looking back, I should have recognized that reaction as the warning sign it was. Must be nice to have everything figured out, she had muttered under her breath as she cleared the dishes. I ignored the comment, chalking it up to her having a bad day. That was another pattern, overlooking the red flags, making excuses for her behavior just like our mother always had. Had I paid more attention, perhaps I could have prevented what came next. But I was too busy celebrating my achievement and planning for a future that was about to be derailed in ways I couldn't imagine. The day it happened started like any other. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. to prepare for an important presentation. Our marketing team was pitching a new campaign to the executive board, and as the recently promoted manager, I felt the pressure to deliver flawlessly. I had been working 14-hour days for 2 weeks straight, fine-tuning every detail. By the time I arrived home that evening, I was completely drained. The presentation had gone well, but the questioning afterward had been intense. My brain felt like mush. The refrigerator was nearly empty since I hadn't had time to grocery shop. Brooke was out with friends again, so I was alone in the apartment. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table, navigating to my usual grocery delivery service. I mindlessly added items to my cart, barely registering what I was selecting. After placing the order, I pulled out my credit card to update the payment information since the website was showing my old card had expired. It was my primary card, the one with the highest limit, $15,000, that I had carefully built up over years of responsible use. After completing the transaction, exhaustion hit me like a wave. I left the credit card on the table and stumbled to my bedroom, not even bothering to change out of my work clothes before collapsing onto the bed. I was asleep within minutes. The piercing sound of my phone's notification woke me at 3:17 a.m. Groggily, I reached for it, expecting perhaps an urgent work email. Instead, I saw a series of transaction alerts from my credit card company. Confused, I opened the first one. Thank you for your purchase at Nordstrom, $1,249.87. I blinked, trying to clear the sleep from my eyes. I hadn't bought anything at Nordstrom. The next notification showed a charge for $879 at Sephora. Another for $2,340.75 at Louis Vuitton. My heart began racing as I scrolled through alert after alert. American Airlines, $3,897.50 for 3 round-trip tickets to Miami. The Ritz-Carlton South Beach, $2,893 for a 4-night stay. Various restaurants and boutiques totaling over $700. In less than 24 hours, someone had charged nearly $12,000 to my credit card. My hands shook as I jumped out of bed, fully awake now. I ran to the kitchen table where I had left my card, but it wasn't there. Panic surged through me as I frantically searched the apartment, flipping couch cushions and checking between furniture. The card was gone. I immediately called the credit card company's fraud department, pacing the living room as I waited through the automated system. When a representative finally answered, I frantically explained the situation. I need to report fraudulent charges. Someone has stolen my credit card and made thousands of dollars in purchases. After verifying my identity, the representative reviewed the recent transactions with me. Ms. Mitchell, I see the charges you're referring to, but I should point out that these purchases were made in person, with the physical card and correct PIN entered. They weren't made online, which is the usual pattern for stolen cards. That's impossible, I insisted. I never made these purchases. Was your card lost or stolen? She asked. I think it was stolen from my kitchen table, I replied, the reality of the situation slowly dawning on me. Is there anyone who might have access to your card and PIN? Perhaps a family member or roommate. The question hit me like a physical blow. Brooke. It had to be Brooke. Who else could have taken the card from our apartment? Who else would know that I often used my birth year as my PIN? I'll need to investigate this, I said, my voice hollow. Can you freeze the card for now? After ending the call, I sat on the couch in shock, staring at my phone. I pulled up my text messages and saw that Brooke hadn't responded to any of my texts from the previous day. With trembling fingers, I typed, Did you take my credit card? 3 minutes later, my phone pinged. Borrowed it for a few things. Back in a few days. Don't worry. Don't worry? Don't worry? I stared at the message in disbelief. My sister had stolen my credit card and charged $12,000, nearly maxing it out, and her response was, "Don't worry." I called her immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice shaking with anger. "Brooke, I know you took my credit card. You've charged thousands of dollars without my permission. This is theft. Call me back immediately." Over the next several hours, I sent increasingly desperate messages, alternating between rage and pleading. The responses were sporadic and vague. "Chill out, it's not a big deal. You got that promotion, you can afford it. I needed this vacation, you don't understand how stressed I've been. I'll pay you back eventually." Each message only fueled my anger and disbelief. How could my own sister do this to me? What gave her the right to decide how my money should be spent? The betrayal cut deep, leaving me nauseated and lightheaded. I called in sick to work, something I never did, and spent the day in a daze, alternating between crying and staring at my phone, waiting for a proper explanation that never came. I checked my credit card account repeatedly, watching in horror as a few more small charges appeared: airport meals, an Uber ride, a swimsuit shop in Miami. The reality of my situation began to sink in. My credit card was maxed out. My emergency savings would cover the minimum payment, but not the full balance. My credit score, which I had carefully built since college, would take a significant hit. The financial security I had worked so hard for was suddenly in jeopardy, all because my sister felt entitled to a shopping spree and beach vacation. As night fell and Brooke still hadn't returned my calls, a cold realization settled over me. This wasn't just about the money. This was about trust, respect, and the painful recognition that perhaps my sister didn't care about me as much as I cared about her. The person I had supported, defended, and loved had betrayed me in one of the worst ways possible. I sat in our darkened apartment, waiting for a sister who was sunbathing in Miami on my dime, wondering how I could have been so blind for so long. 3 days passed with minimal communication from Brooke. Just enough text messages to let me know she was alive, but not enough to provide any real explanation or apology. I took those days to process my emotions, moving from shock to rage to a cold, clear determination. I had made my decision about how to handle the situation, and I was prepared to stand firm. On the 4th day, I heard the key in the lock. I was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long gone cold. I had rehearsed what I would say, how I would remain calm and rational despite the storm inside me. Brooke breezed in, tanned and smiling, dragging a new suitcase behind her and carrying multiple shopping bags. Her hair was highlighted with fresh blonde streaks, and she wore a designer sundress I had never seen before. She looked like she didn't have a care in the world. "Hey," she said casually, as if returning from a normal day out rather than a theft-funded vacation. "Miami was amazing. You should have seen the beach at South Beach." I stared at her, momentarily speechless at her audacity. When I found my voice, it came out eerily calm. "You stole my credit card and spent nearly $12,000 without my permission." Brooke rolled her eyes, dropping her bags on the floor. "I borrowed your card for a few things. Don't be so dramatic. $12,000 isn't a few things, Brooke. You maxed out my credit card. You committed fraud." She waved her hand dismissively as she walked to the refrigerator and pulled out a bottle of water. "I'll pay you back. Eventually." "With what money?" I asked, my voice rising despite my determination to stay calm. "You don't even have a job right now." "I'll figure it out." She took a sip of water, not meeting my eyes. "You always get so worked up about money. You've got plenty now with your fancy promotion. It's not like you were using that credit limit anyway." I felt my control slipping. "That's not the point. That card was for emergencies. It wasn't yours to use. You had no right." "Oh, here we go," Brooke interrupted, her casual demeanor suddenly shifting to defensive. "Saint Alana, always doing everything right, always judging everyone else. You think you're so much better than me." "This isn't about who's better," I said through gritted teeth. "This is about you stealing from me." "I didn't steal," she snapped. "Sisters share things. That's what family does. Share? Share. My voice echoed off the apartment walls. You don't share $12,000 without asking. You don't share someone's credit card. Brooke's expression hardened. You always have money now, and I deserve nice things too. Why should you get to have everything while I struggle? Do you know how it feels to watch your sister succeed while you can barely pay your phone bill? So this is about jealousy? You felt entitled to sabotage my finances because you're jealous of my job. It's not jealousy, she retorted. It's fairness. Mom and Dad helped you through college, but when it was my turn, there was no money left because of the divorce. You got the head start. I'm just evening the playing field. I stared at her, incredulous. I worked part-time jobs all through college. I took out student loans that I just finished paying off last year. Nothing was handed to me. Whatever, Brooke said, turning away. I'm going to unpack. I just came back to get more clothes anyway. What do you mean, came back to get more clothes? Aren't you staying here? A flicker of something, guilt? Defiance crossed her face. I'm going back to Miami tomorrow. The hotel reservation is for 4 more days. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. You're going back? After what you did? I also bought tickets for 2 friends to come with me, she admitted, a hint of pride in her voice. Tara and Jess are meeting me there tomorrow. We've been planning a girls' trip for ages, but we never had the money. This was the perfect opportunity. I felt something snap inside me. All the years of making excuses for her, covering for her, supporting her emotionally and financially, it all culminated in this moment of utter disrespect. Get out, I said quietly. Brooke looked up, startled. What? Get out of my apartment. Now. Pack your things and leave. She laughed nervously. You're not serious. I've never been more serious in my life. You stole from me, Brooke. You betrayed my trust in the worst way possible. And you're not even sorry. Don't be ridiculous, she scoffed. You wouldn't kick out your own sister. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me. Brooke's expression darkened. Fine. I'll stay with Mom. She'll understand, even if you don't. I'll tell her how selfish you're being. Go ahead, I said, my resolve strengthening. But before you leave, I want a signed agreement that you'll pay back every cent you stole. I'm not signing anything, she scoffed. And I didn't steal. I borrowed. Then I'll press charges for credit card fraud. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said, surprising myself with my steadiness. You have a choice, Brooke. Sign a repayment agreement or I go to the police. Those are your only options. She glared at me, her expression a mixture of shock and anger. I can't believe you'd do this to your own sister. It's not like you need that money anyway, you're just being selfish. With that parting shot, she grabbed her new suitcase and stormed toward her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I remained at the kitchen table, trembling but resolute. The worst confrontation of my life had just occurred, and yet somehow, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in our relationship, I had stood up for myself. I had set a boundary. I knew the battle was far from over. Brooke would call our mother. There would be family drama, tears, and attempts to make me feel guilty. But in that moment, I made a promise to myself. I would not back down. Not this time. The hours after Brooke stormed out were surreal. The apartment felt both emptier and somehow lighter without her presence. I sat motionless at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, processing the confrontation and its implications. Then reality began to set in, and I forced myself to face the practical consequences of what had happened. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The numbers stared back at me, stark and unforgiving. My checking account had enough to cover rent and basic bills for the month, but just barely. The credit card statement showed $14,783.42 charged, nearly at the $15,000 limit. The minimum payment alone would be over $400. My hands shook as I pulled up my credit monitoring app. As expected, my score had already dropped by 47 points due to the high utilization rate. If I couldn't pay off a significant portion of the balance quickly, it would continue to fall. The timing couldn't have been worse. The lease on our apartment was up for renewal in 2 months, and I had been planning to move to a nicer place closer to work. Now, with a compromised credit score, getting approved for a new lease would be challenging, if not impossible. My phone rang, pulling me from my financial calculations. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. Alana Mitchell, how could you? Mom's voice was tight with anger. Brooke just called me in tears. She said you kicked her out over a misunderstanding about a credit card. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. She stole my credit card and charged almost $15,000 without my permission. She said she borrowed it for a few necessities, Mom countered. And that you overreacted because you're stressed about work. I laughed bitterly. A few necessities? She bought designer clothes, makeup, and flew to Miami with friends. On my dime. Without asking. There was a pause. Well, maybe she shouldn't have taken the card without asking, but she's your sister. You know how impulsive she can be. This isn't about impulsiveness. This is about theft. Don't use that word, Mom snapped. She's family. Family doesn't steal from family, I insisted. You've always been so rigid, Alana. So unforgiving. You got that promotion, you have money now. You should help your sister enjoy life a little. Her words felt like a slap. Even now, Mom was making excuses for Brooke, expecting me to clean up the mess. The familiar dynamic was playing out again, and the realization made my stomach churn. I've been supporting her for nearly a year, Mom. Paying the rent, the utilities, buying groceries. And this is how she repays me. She'll pay you back when she can, Mom said dismissively. When? She doesn't even have a job. She's looking for the right opportunity. Not everyone can be as lucky as you. Lucky. The word struck a nerve. My success hadn't been luck. It had been years of hard work, sacrifices, and responsibility. But in our family narrative, Brooke was the victim, and I was the lucky one who should feel obligated to give more. I'm not having this conversation anymore, I said finally. Brooke stole from me. She's not welcome in my home until she takes responsibility and agrees to pay me back. Then she'll stay with me, Mom replied coldly. At least I won't turn my back on her. The call ended, and I felt a wave of emotions crash over me, anger, hurt, betrayal. Not just from Brooke now, but from my mother too. The two people who should have been my strongest supporters had instead united against me, making me the villain for having reasonable boundaries. The next day at work was a blur. I stared at spreadsheets without comprehending the numbers, sat through meetings without registering the conversations. My colleague Rachel noticed my distraction. Alana, are you okay? You seem a million miles away. I hesitated, then found myself pouring out the whole story in the break room. To my surprise, Rachel's expression grew increasingly outraged on my behalf. That's not just inconsiderate, that's criminal, she said when I finished. Please tell me you're pressing charges. I can't do that to my sister, I said, though the resolve in my voice was weakening. She did this to herself, Rachel pointed out. And to you. That evening, I faced another humiliating consequence. I had to call my friend Taylor to borrow money for groceries until my next paycheck. Of course I'll help, Taylor said without hesitation. But Alana, this isn't right. You need to report the fraud to the credit card company officially. They already said they won't cover it since she's a family member who had access to the card, I explained. Then go to the police, Taylor insisted. This is theft, plain and simple. I couldn't bring myself to take that step, not yet. But the seed was planted in my mind. Over the next few days, a disturbing pattern emerged. Mutual friends began reaching out with stories of their own experiences with Brooke. Megan recalled lending Brooke $300 for emergency rent that was never repaid. Jason mentioned how his jacket with his wallet in the pocket had mysteriously disappeared during a party at Brooke's old apartment, only to reappear without the cash it had contained. Each story confirmed what I had begun to suspect. This behavior wasn't new or isolated. It was a pattern. The final straw came when I saw Brooke's Instagram posts. There she was, lounging on South Beach with two friends, cocktails in hand, designer sunglasses perched on her nose. The caption read, "Living my best life with my girls. #blessed #no regrets." No regrets. The words burned into my brain. While I was scrambling to figure out how to pay my bills, she was celebrating her theft on social media. That night, I cried myself to sleep, feeling more alone than I ever had. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. My sister had stolen from me, my mother had defended the theft, and I was left picking up the pieces of my financial life alone. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes, but a newfound clarity. This situation had revealed painful truths about my family dynamics that I could no longer ignore. For years, I had enabled Brooke's behavior, just as our mother had. I had made excuses, forgiven without consequences, and allowed myself to be taken advantage of in the name of family love. No more. It was time to break the cycle, regardless of how painful it might be. A week after the confrontation, my phone buzzed with a text from Brooke, coming by tomorrow to get the rest of my stuff. Around 2. I didn't respond, but I spent that evening preparing. I changed the locks on the apartment door, a cost I could afford but deemed necessary. I gathered Brooke's belongings, packing them neatly in boxes and bags, and placed them in the building's storage closet, which the superintendent had allowed me to use temporarily. At 2:15 p.m. the next day, I heard Brooke's key scraping unsuccessfully in the lock, followed by impatient knocking. "Alana, open up. My key's not working." I opened the door but stood firmly in the doorway, blocking entrance. Brooke's Miami tan had already begun to fade, and without the initial shock of the confrontation, I could see the dark circles under her eyes and the tension in her posture. "Your things are in boxes in the storage room," I said calmly. "Mr. Ramirez has the key. He knows you're coming." Brooke's expression shifted from confusion to anger. "You changed the locks? Are you kidding me? I'm not letting you back into the apartment unless you sign a repayment agreement and show me proof that you've canceled your return flight to Miami." "This is ridiculous," she spat. "You can't just lock me out of my own home." "It's not your home," I replied steadily. "Your name isn't on the lease. You don't pay rent. And after what you did, you're no longer welcome here." "I'm calling Mom," she threatened, pulling out her phone. "Go ahead. It won't change anything." Her eyes narrowed. "I'll tell everyone in the family how abusive you're being. How you've thrown your own sister out on the street over a misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding, Brooke. You stole from me. And I have the credit card statements and your text messages to prove it." Something in my tone must have registered because her expression faltered slightly. "You wouldn't really go to the police, would you?" "I don't want to," I admitted. "But I will if I have to. This isn't just about the money anymore. It's about you taking responsibility for your actions for once in your life." Brooke's phone buzzed. She glanced down at it, then back at me, a calculating look crossing her face. "Fine. I'll sign your stupid agreement. But I need a place to stay until I find my own apartment." "No," I said firmly. "You can stay with Mom. She's already offered. Mom's place is too far from downtown. All my friends are here. That's not my problem. You should have thought about consequences before stealing my credit card." Her face contorted with fury. "You're such a bitch. After everything I've done for you." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "What exactly have you done for me, Brooke? Name one thing." She opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to formulate a response. Finally, she resorted to her typical strategy, deflection through attack. "You think you're so perfect with your fancy job and your responsible life. But you're just boring and pathetic. No wonder you don't have a boyfriend. Who would want to date someone so uptight and judgmental?" Her words were designed to hurt, to hit my insecurities. In the past, they might have worked. I might have backed down, seeking her approval and affection. But something had shifted inside me. "I'd rather be boring and solvent than exciting and a thief," I replied calmly. "The repayment agreement is on the kitchen table. You can come in to sign it, but I'll be watching you the entire time. After that, you can get your things from storage and leave." Brooke stared at me, seemingly shocked by my resolve. Then her face crumpled slightly, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her since this began. "I don't have any money, Alana. How am I supposed to pay you back?" "Get a job," I suggested. "Any job. Start making payments, even small ones. Show me that you're actually trying. And if I don't? Then I'll file a police report for credit card fraud." She searched my face, perhaps looking for signs of bluffing. Finding none, she grudgingly nodded. "Fine. let me in to sign the stupid paper. It was a small victory, but an important one. As Brooke followed me inside, my phone began ringing. Aunt Carol, Mom's sister. Then Uncle Dave. Then our cousin Patricia. The family phone tree had been activated, and the pressure campaign was beginning. Over the next several days, I received calls and texts from various family members, all with the same message: family sticks together. You can't throw your sister out over money. Be the bigger person. I held firm, repeating the same response. Brooke stole my credit card and charged nearly $15,000 without my permission. If anyone else had done this, we'd call it what it is: theft. Some relatives backed off when they heard the full amount. Others continued to pressure me, suggesting I was overreacting. The divide was illuminating, revealing which family members respected boundaries and which enabled toxic behavior. Throughout this family drama, I was still grappling with the financial fallout. A meeting with a financial advisor from my bank laid out the harsh reality. Even if Brooke signed the agreement, there was no guarantee she would actually pay. I needed to create a plan assuming I would have to cover the entire amount myself. You'll need to cut expenses dramatically, the advisor explained, and possibly look for additional income sources. I nodded, already mentally cataloging potential cuts. No more takeout. Cancel the streaming services. Put my gym membership on hold. Sell some furniture and electronics I didn't absolutely need. The most painful decision was taking a weekend job at a local coffee shop. After years of working hard to advance my career, I was back to making minimum wage plus tips on Saturdays and Sundays. The irony wasn't lost on me. Brooke's theft had forced me back to the kind of job I'd worked in college, the very period of financial struggle she claimed I'd avoided. Despite the humiliation and exhaustion, the extra job provided an unexpected source of support. My manager, Elena, had experienced financial betrayal from her brother years before and became an empathetic listener during slow periods at the cafe. Setting boundaries with family is the hardest thing I've ever done, she told me one Sunday morning as we prepared the shop for opening. But it was also the most important. Until I did that, the pattern just kept repeating. Her words resonated deeply. The pattern. Yes. That's exactly what it was, a pattern that had been established long ago in our family. Brooke takes, I give, Mom enables. Repeat indefinitely. A surprising ally emerged in this difficult time, my father. Though we'd never been as close after the divorce, when I finally broke down and called him, his response was immediate and supportive. You did the right thing, he said firmly. Enabling her behavior doesn't help her in the long run. It just ensures she'll never grow up. Mom doesn't see it that way, I replied, my voice catching. Dad sighed. Your mother has always had a blind spot when it comes to Brooke. She feels guilty about the divorce, about how it affected her. But that doesn't make her right. His validation was healing in ways I hadn't anticipated. For so long, I'd carried the family narrative that I was the strong one who didn't need support, while Brooke needed special care and allowances. Hearing my father acknowledge the dysfunction gave me permission to trust my own perceptions. 2 weeks after signing the repayment agreement, Brooke showed up at my door unannounced. She looked different, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt instead of her usual trendy outfits. I got a job, she said without preamble, at the call center for that insurance company downtown. It's boring as hell, but it's full-time with benefits. I didn't know what to say. Of all the possible scenarios I'd imagined for this confrontation, Brooke voluntarily getting a job hadn't been one of them. That's good, I managed. She handed me an envelope. It's only $300. First paycheck. But I'll give you something every time I get paid. I took the envelope, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said, an edge to her voice. I'm only doing this because you forced me to. I didn't force you to steal my credit card, I reminded her. She looked away. Whatever. Are you going to let me come back now? No, I said, surprised by how easily the refusal came. You can keep staying with Mom or find your own place. Mom's driving me crazy, she muttered. Treating me like I'm 12. That's between you and Mom. Brooke's eyes narrowed. You're really not going to forgive me, are you? Forgiveness doesn't mean no consequences, I replied. I'm glad you got a job. I'm glad you're starting to pay me back. But trust takes longer to rebuild than a checking account balance. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded curtly before turning to leave. As I watched her walk away, I realized something important. For the first time in our adult relationship, Brooke was facing genuine consequences for her actions. And despite her reluctance, she was responding to the boundary I'd set. It was a turning point, not just for Brooke, but for me. I was learning that true compassion sometimes meant standing firm rather than giving in. That real love occasionally required difficult boundaries. And most importantly, that I deserved to protect myself, even from family. The envelope with Brooke's first payment sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I deposited it. Those $300 represented more than money. They symbolized a shift in our relationship, an acknowledgement of wrongdoing, however reluctant. I wanted to honor that step, small as it was. Life settled into a new routine. Weekdays at my marketing job, weekends at the coffee shop. Evenings were dedicated to my strict budget, tracking every dollar spent and saved. My apartment felt emptier without Brooke, but also more peaceful. I no longer found dishes in the sink when I came home, or had to negotiate for shower time in the mornings. Mom continued to call regularly, her tone alternating between guilt-inducing and cautiously supportive. She was trapped in her own conflicted feelings, wanting to defend Brooke while recognizing the severity of what she'd done. "She's really trying, Mom would say. "This job isn't easy for her. She comes home exhausted every day." "That's what jobs are like," I would reply, trying to keep the edge from my voice. "That's what my job is like too." I know. You've always been such a hard worker." A pause. "She misses you." These conversations left me emotionally drained, caught between empathy for both my mother and sister and the need to maintain my boundaries. I began limiting calls to once a week, protecting my mental energy. True to her word, Brooke delivered a payment every 2 weeks. The amounts varied, sometimes $300, sometimes $400, but they came consistently. According to our agreement, at this rate, it would take nearly 2 years to repay the full amount. 2 years of this strange, distant relationship with my only sibling. The thought was depressing, but I reminded myself that this was the consequence of her actions, not mine. Still, I found myself missing the sister I thought I had, the one who made me laugh, who brought spontaneity to my carefully ordered life. I missed our movie nights and inside jokes, the shorthand language of siblings who had shared a childhood. 3 months into our new arrangement, I received an unexpected email from Brooke. Not a text or call, but a formal email with the subject line, "I'm sorry." I opened it with trepidation, expecting perhaps a manipulative plea to let her move back in. Instead, I found something entirely different. "Alana, I know a simple email can't fix what I did. I've been wanting to say this for weeks, but couldn't find the courage to say it to your face. I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. What I did was wrong. It wasn't borrowing or sharing or any of the other excuses I made. It was stealing, and it was a betrayal of your trust. There's no justification for it, though I've tried to come up with plenty. You've always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. You let me live with you when I had nowhere to go. You covered the rent and bills when I couldn't or wouldn't contribute. You've been picking up my messes since we were kids, and instead of being grateful, I resented you for having your life together. Last week, something happened that forced me to see things differently. My friend Tara, one of the people I took to Miami on your dime, stole $200 from my purse while I was in the shower. When I confronted her, she used the exact same excuses I used with you. Friends share things. You can afford it now that you have a job. It's not a big deal. Hearing my own justifications coming from someone else made me realize how hollow they were. I felt betrayed and violated, and then it hit me. That's exactly how I made you feel, but 1,000 times worse. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want you to know I'm committed to paying you back every cent. I'm also seeing a therapist now, Mom's idea, surprisingly. We're working on my issues with money, responsibility, and apparently, my sense of entitlement, her words, but she's not wrong. I miss you. I miss our talks and our movie nights. I miss having a sister. I understand if you're not ready to forgive me yet, or maybe ever. but I hope someday we can at least talk again. Brooke. I read the email 3 times, emotions washing over me in waves. Suspicion? Was this another manipulation tactic? Relief. She finally acknowledged what she'd done. Hope. Maybe our relationship wasn't permanently destroyed. Caution. Words were easy, consistent actions were what mattered. After careful consideration, I replied with a short message suggesting we meet for coffee that weekend, at a neutral location, not my apartment. She responded almost immediately with an enthusiastic yes. Saturday afternoon found me at a small cafe downtown, nervously checking my watch every few minutes. Brooke arrived 10 minutes early, another unexpected change. She looked different, not just the simpler clothes and lack of expensive accessories, but something in her demeanor. Less entitled, more grounded. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as she slid into the chair across from me. "Thank you for the email," I replied. It meant a lot. An awkward silence fell between us. 3 months of minimal contact had created a distance that felt strange and painful. "How's the job going?" I finally asked. "It's actually not terrible," she admitted with a small smile. "I got promoted to team lead last week. Turns out I'm good at talking to angry customers." "Congratulations," I said, genuinely pleased for her. "That's great. How about you? Are you still working weekends at the coffee shop?" I nodded. "For now. Until I can pay down enough of the credit card to get my score back up." Guilt flashed across her face. "I'm so sorry about that. I didn't think about how it would affect your credit score." "I know you didn't," I said softly. "That was part of the problem." We talked for nearly 2 hours, carefully navigating the new terrain of our relationship. Brooke shared insights from her therapy sessions, how she was beginning to recognize patterns of behavior that stemmed from the divorce, how she used shopping and social status to fill emotional voids. I told her about the financial management course I was taking online, about my plans to rebuild my savings and eventually buy a condo. As we prepared to leave, Brooke hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been on her mind. Do you think we'll ever be close again? Like we used to be?" I considered the question carefully. "I think we can have a relationship again, but it will be different. Better in some ways, maybe. Based on mutual respect and honesty instead of the old patterns." "I'd like that," she said quietly. "Me too," I admitted. "But it will take time. And consistent effort from both of us." She nodded, understanding the implicit boundary. Our reconciliation would be gradual, earned through actions rather than granted automatically because of family ties. As we parted ways, I felt a tentative optimism. The sister I had loved was still there, beneath the layers of entitlement and resentment that had built up over years. And perhaps the sister she needed me to be, one who held firm boundaries instead of enabling harmful behavior, was emerging as well. The road to financial recovery was long and often frustrating. Despite working 7 days a week and cutting expenses to the bone, progress seemed painfully slow. But there were bright spots. My credit score began to climb back up as I paid down the balance. Brooke's payments continued to arrive consistently. My boss at TechVision noticed my renewed focus and drive, resulting in a small performance bonus that went entirely toward the credit card debt. 6 months after the incident, I was able to quit the coffee shop job. 8 months in, I qualified for a lease on a new apartment, smaller than my previous one, but in a building with better security and closer to work. I invited Brooke over for dinner after I moved in, the first time she'd been to my home since the confrontation. She arrived with a housewarming gift. Not an expensive trinket as she might have chosen before, but a practical set of kitchen towels and a homemade lasagna. "I remembered you saying your old towels were falling apart," she explained. "And I've been taking cooking classes. The lasagna might be a bit experimental, but it's edible, I think." The gesture touched me deeply. She had listened, had thought about my actual needs rather than what would impress or what she would want. It was a small thing, but it represented significant growth. Our relationship continued to heal, slowly and with occasional setbacks. There were still moments of tension when old patterns threatened to resurface. Sometimes Brooke would make a thoughtless comment about money, or I would find myself being overly critical of her choices. But we were both trying, both growing, both learning to relate to each other as the adults we had become rather than the children we had been. 1 year after the credit card theft, Brooke made her final payment. She insisted on meeting in person to deliver it, along with a card that simply said, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." That night, as I updated my financial spreadsheet and marked the debt as fully repaid, I reflected on the true cost and value of what had happened. The incident had been painful, expensive, and emotionally draining. But it had also forced both of us to confront the unhealthy dynamics that had defined our relationship for years. It had pushed us to grow in ways that might otherwise have taken decades, if they happened at all. Sometimes, I realized, the most valuable lessons come from our most painful experiences. And sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are also the ones who teach us the most about ourselves, about our boundaries, our values, and our capacity for both accountability and forgiveness. 1 year and 3 months after finding those shocking credit card notifications on my phone, I stood in the doorway of my new condo. After months of searching and saving, I had finally found a place I could call my own, a modest one-bedroom with a small balcony overlooking a neighborhood park. The mortgage payments would be tight for a while, but it was mine, an investment in my future rather than rent disappearing each month. My phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. "Did you get the keys today? Need help moving this weekend?" I smiled as I typed back, "Got them." And yes, extra hands would be appreciated Saturday morning. Bringing coffee and donuts as payment. Our relationship had found a new equilibrium. Not the enmeshed, codependent dynamic of before, but something healthier, two adult sisters who respected each other's boundaries while still being present in each other's lives. We didn't live together anymore, and probably never would again, but we had regular dinner dates and occasional movie nights. We were building new memories to replace the painful ones. Brooke had maintained her job at the call center, eventually being promoted to supervisor. She had her own apartment now, modest but well within her means, and was taking classes at community college toward a business degree. The change in her wasn't just financial. She carried herself differently, with a quiet confidence that came from earning her accomplishments rather than borrowing or stealing them. My mother had undergone her own evolution. After initially defending Brooke, she had eventually recognized her role in enabling the problematic behavior. She and I had had several difficult but necessary conversations about family patterns, responsibility, and the difference between supporting and enabling. While we still occasionally fell into old habits, our relationship had gained a new dimension of honesty and mutual respect. As I unpacked boxes in my new home, I reflected on the lessons I had learned through this painful experience. First, I had learned the critical importance of setting and maintaining boundaries, especially with family. Love without boundaries isn't really love at all, it's enablement, and it ultimately harms both parties. True love sometimes means saying no, setting limits, and allowing others to experience the natural consequences of their actions. Second, I had gained a deeper understanding of financial security. Money wasn't just about numbers in a bank account, it was about safety, options, and independence. The discipline I had developed through this ordeal, tracking expenses, budgeting carefully, distinguishing needs from wants, had given me a foundation that would serve me for life. Third, I had discovered the difference between forgiveness and trust. Forgiveness was a decision, something I could choose to give regardless of the other person's actions. Trust, however, was earned through consistent behavior over time. I had forgiven Brooke relatively early in the process, but rebuilding trust had taken months of reliable payments and changed behavior. Fourth, I had learned to trust my own perceptions and feelings, even when others tried to invalidate them. The initial reactions from my mother and some family members had made me question whether I was overreacting. But my gut had been right, theft was theft, betrayal was betrayal, regardless of family ties. Standing firm in that truth had been essential to breaking the dysfunctional cycle. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, I had discovered my own strength. Before this incident, I had defined myself largely through my responsibility and reliability, good qualities, but passive ones. The crisis had forced me to develop courage, assertiveness, and resilience. I was no longer just the responsible sister. I was a woman who knew her worth and wouldn't allow anyone, even family, to take advantage of her. That evening, as I sat on my new balcony watching the sunset, my phone rang. It was Brooke. "Hey, I'm calling to check if you need anything specific for moving day. I could bring my friend's truck if you have larger items." "That would be amazing, actually," I replied. "The couch might be a challenge otherwise." "Consider it done." "And Alana? I've been meaning to tell you something." "What's that?" "I'm really proud of you. For the condo, for everything. You deserve this." Her words caught me off guard, bringing unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I managed. "That means a lot." After we hung up, I sat with my emotions for a while. There had been so much pain in the past year, so much strain and struggle. But there had also been growth, healing, and ultimately, a transformation of our relationship into something healthier than it had ever been before. The betrayal had nearly broken us. But instead, it had broken patterns, the unhealthy dynamics that had defined our relationship for years. From those broken patterns, we had built something new, something stronger and more authentic. As the last light faded from the sky, I made a silent promise to myself to carry these lessons forward, to remember both the pain and the growth it had produced. To continue standing firm in my worth while leaving space for others to grow and change. To recognize that sometimes the most painful experiences can ultimately lead to the most meaningful transformation. Life would continue to bring challenges, disappointments, and even betrayals. But I faced the future with a new confidence, knowing that I had the strength to weather whatever storms might come and the wisdom to build healthier relationships in the sunshine that followed. I've learned that true love sometimes means setting firm boundaries, and real growth often comes from our most painful experiences. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with similar challenges. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even with family. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your worth is non-negotiable, and the right people in your life will respect that.